Do you want me to turn it... I turned it up a little bit.
No, that looks pretty good. As long as we don't get, like, up here, we should be fine.
We just don't try and eat the mic, basically. All right, let's start this stink train, shall we? Welcome, everybody, to it's time... I'm gonna...
We might have to do that again.
Yeah, we're gonna do that
Well,
again.
also because you leaned forward.
Did I?
Ba, 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 ba.
This is the temporary theme song for
The Media Lunch Break.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Media Lunch Break, where we sum up all of your comic book, movie, and geek news into a nice time when you can... fuck me. I'm gonna do that one more time.
Just do it.
That's the cold open.
Just go.
I'm gonna get it. Third time's a charm. Third time's a charm. Here we go. Ready?
Were you the first child?
I hate you. Welcome, everybody, to the Media Lunch Break, where we sum up all of your comic book, geek, and movie news into the time when it takes you to eat a nice sandwich and perhaps a fluffy croissant. As always, I am your host, Chris Treble, and alongside me is my co-host, Andrew Dunn. Say hello, Andrew.
Hi.
There we go. Lot to get to today.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go through some news. We're going to say goodbye to someone that's... no matter how old he is, it's too soon. Do you want to get right to the news now? All right.
If you ask me that, does that mean that I have a say in this?
Not really. I
all right.
I just want you to feel involved.
Okay.
It's
I just wanted to double check.
Yeah. No. I'm running this ship.
Okay.
All right. As always, I'll give you the option. Do you want to start with Marvel or do you want to start with DC?
What's better?
Probably Marvel.
DC.
Excellent. I want to talk about Star Trek.
You fuck.
Yeah. So there was a good bit of Star Trek news that actually came out. I don't know if you're aware of the new Star Trek series that CBS is planning. So let me fill you in. CBS is about to launch CBS All Access, which is their online format.
It's like a Netflix.
Yeah, it's like a Netflix. You have
more like an HBO Go.
Yeah, you actually have to pay to get this content. And their big launching point is that they're starting a new Star Trek series. Oh. Now, that's going to be run by Brian Fuller, who is famous for Pushing Daisies, Heroes. But he just did an interview earlier this week, and he let out a bunch of new stuff. Now, they've been trying to figure out who this is going to follow, where in the timeline it's gonna lie.
Yeah, is it going to be a new set of people?
It's going to be a new set of people. It's called Star Trek Discovery, which is also the name of the ship that they're going to use. The big question was, who's the lead character?
Yeah, sure.
And where does it fall in the timeline?
Yeah.
Now that we have the new...
It's important.
Abrams verse. And and this is really interesting to me, and not to you at all, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So, the hell with it.
Well, I'm going to go get something to eat.
Cool. I'm just going to keep talking. So, no, what they revealed was the lead character is a female human, not a captain of the ship.
I was going to ask, yeah. Okay.
Not the captain of the ship this time. The character is going to be referred to as Number One, which, for those of you who are familiar with your Star Trek lore, Andrew, by the blank stare on his face, is not one of them.
Is this going to be a Riker thing?
It is a Riker thing!
Booyah!
Ooh!
In your face.
Done.
Your face.
Riker was referred to as Number One. So the fact that she is referred to by Number One means that she is a commander. She should be the first commander of the ship. This is apparently a nod to the first commander of the unused pilot for Star Trek, of the original series. Let's go deep.
What does that
with
mean?
The Star Trek lore. So in the original series, Christopher Pike was the captain and not Captain Kirk.
Oh.
That's where that person comes from in the new Abrams verse. Christopher Pike was the original captain of the Starship Enterprise.
When? For the show?
For the show.
And when did he take over?
Because
Kirk became Captain Kirk.
Right. But there was a pilot that they shot that I think that they aired and then scrapped it and started all over again. And put Shatner in as Captain Kirk.
Got it.
But in the original pilot...
Was he Commander Kirk in the pilot?
No, I don't believe so. I think there was like just a different set of characters.
Okay.
Because... No, he definitely wasn't. Because in the original pilot, the commander was a woman.
Oh, okay.
And Brian Fuller actually came out this week and said this is a nod to her.
Oh, okay.
To this character that only made it one episode. So we're gonna have a female-led Star Trek show that's a non-captain. So this is all kind of new. They did have the captain of Voyager, Captain Janeway, was a female, but the fact that this is following a non-captain officer is new territory.
Yeah, that's double the fanboy tears.
Yeah. The first season is only going to be 13 episodes.
Oh.
Yeah. I guess it's going to be serialized, so it's not episodic. It's not like a self-contained episode.
Got it.
The big news that they had released is, and they had released this earlier, but we've gotten more details about it, is that Fuller and Alex Kurtzman is in the writer's room. Alex Kurtzman was one of the writers of the Star Trek series with Chris Pine.
Sure.
And Nicholas Myers is also in the writer's room. Nicholas Myers wrote Wrath of Khan.
Oh.
And Voyage Home.
Nice.
And Undiscovered Country.
Are any of those bad?
No, those are all the good ones. There
Nice.
is the trope that the even-numbered Star Treks are the good Star Treks.
Right.
Nicholas Myers wrote all of them. So he has written the second episode of this series. So that's something to look forward to. The really big news is when they set where in the timeline they set the series.
Sure.
10 years before the original series.
Oh.
Now, what this means, and I'm about to blow your mind, what this means is this series falls in both universes. Both
Sure.
the Shatnerverse
Yeah.
and the Chris Pine verse.
Yeah, because it's before it's split.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
So you could have pretty much any number of guests come on
Sure.
in some sort of way.
But I would really hope, too, that I hope this show lasts 10 years so we can see which direction they go.
That would be, that's going to be interesting. And they say that this show is going to be based around some sort of event that is in the Star Trek lore that's only been referred to, but never actually shown. There's a big Klingon war that people talk about that I don't know if we're going to actually see, because I think that technically takes place after the original series. That's the idea. But a lot of interesting news about that. I'm more excited, clearly, than you. You didn't grow up on Star Trek, did you?
No. I watched Star Wars. I've seen...
You can watch both, all right?
Nah.
Yeah.
I like the new movies because they're Star Wars movies.
Right. Now, how much did you know about Star Trek going into the new movies?
Well, I dated a girl for 4 years who was a huge Trekkie as a child and as an adult because no matter how hard you try, yeah, you can't get rid of that.
I mean, I grew up on Star Trek: The Next Generation, but that's kind of ingrained in you. It is definitely one of those things that you take with you wherever.
So I knew a good bit going in. Oddly, I didn't know who Chris Hemsworth was, and he plays his dad in it.
Yes, which is something we didn't get a chance to talk about last week, but Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, yeah.
In the next Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
Which is going to be really interesting. Because now they're bringing in time travel, which is a big Star Trek thing.
Well, as far as I know, they haven't said that they're bringing in time travel.
Right. I'm sorry. I should say people are predicting that they're
right, because I was going to say this could be a prequel.
Yeah, but then how are they going to bring in the rest of the cast?
Well, then they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not going to...
I think it's more likely, yeah.
Look, Chris Hemsworth is great, and you can definitely shape most of a movie around him, as they've tried to in the past. You're going to say, no, they can't?
Look, you asked me how do they bring in the rest of the cast into that, and I'll give you my answer. By the power of Thor! He just brings it in, lightning strikes in, he plays both Kirk, whatever his... Mr. Kirk, Senior Kirk. What was his name?
George?
That's a stupid name.
George
Kirk?
No.
It might be.
Somebody out there...
I think it's George.
Is shitting themselves in anger that I don't know this.
I think they're still hung up on a female non-captain.
Yeah, that could be. I mean...
I think we've gone under the radar pretty well.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean... They said it's a female non-captain, so it's just a matter of time till Twitter harasses whoever they cast till that person quits Twitter, as the internet is bound to do. Anyway, so another bit of news. This is something that I touched upon last week when we were talking about Suicide Squad.
Is it your penis?
Well, I mean, I touched upon that all during the week. And I'm doing it right now. I know it's distracting, but you're just going to just look at my eyes.
I'll power through it.
So will I. Yeah. JLA Dark.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember me talking about this?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So they've been trying to do this for a while. JLA Dark, to kind of briefly sum this up again, took all of the magical elements, all of the people like John Constantine, Zatanna, the Dead Man, who is a great character, and I am excited to hopefully see him on the big screen.
Swamp Thing?
Swamp Thing is another one. They Phantom Stranger, Raven, Madame Xanadu. I'm just reading a random.
Yeah, you're cheating right now. You like to pretend that you're a nerd, but you don't know anything, do you?
No.
It's all a big ploy.
Yeah. They collectively formed a group known as the Justice League Dark that just pretty much dealt with problems or crises that the normal Justice League couldn't handle because it fell into the magical realm. And it was kind of like the dark arts version of the Justice League. And I had said last week that the plot of Suicide Squad would have made a great plot for a Justice League Dark movie, and was a terrible plot for Suicide Squad.
Well, now we know that Zack Snyder listens to our podcast.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
I mean, it was only a matter of time. So, Guillermo? Yeah, that's
Guillermo del Toro?
has always been attached to this project.
Really?
He's been trying to
How
do
long's
this.
it been going on?
It's been trying to get done for a few years now.
Okay.
He's been attached to it. And I think it's a great idea because there's a lot of unused properties in the DC universe that they haven't really been mining a whole lot.
I just want as much of Del Toro as I can.
Well, and he would be great for this.
I was thinking Swamp Thing is right up his alley.
I mean, if you've ever seen Pan's Labyrinth, you can immediately think of what he could do.
Or Hellboy 2.
Or Hellboy 2 or 1.
Well, yeah, but Hellboy 2 is when they go to that mystical world. Where
I have not seen. I saw Hellboy 1. I missed Hellboy 2.
You should check out Hellboy 2.
Okay.
That'll probably be an assignment at some point. But there's at one point where they're chasing this otherworldly being through another world, basically.
Right.
And it's just an entire city of Del Toro's creations.
Oh, exactly. So this would be great for him. Now he has. The bad news is he's just dropped out as director, but I believe he's going to stay and still produce.
All right, that's all you need.
The person that they've attached as the director is Doug Liman, who was the director of Edge of Tomorrow and The Bourne Identity and a couple of others. A solid director, to be sure. And I think as long as you still have Del Toro producing and putting his spin on it, like I said, I know he's been trying to shepherd this for a while. Yeah. Then it's gonna be it's still gonna be pretty good.
Well, there have been times too. I've been thinking lately, there are times when I ask myself, why do we even have directors anymore? Where there's so many movies. Time. Well, you look at Suicide Squad,
and you go, somebody directed this?
Well, not even necessarily that, but editors, producers.
Yes.
These people stepped in so heavily,
right? And
David Smith. Ayer Smith is not a big name by any means. He's fine, but it's not no one's going to read that lineup and go, Will Smith, Margot Robbie, Jared Leto, David Ayer. I wasn't going to go to it, but I sure will now,
Yeah.
So, there are times where I'm like, why not just have a representative of the producer stand idly by,
right? And
just I know why a director needs to be there,
right?
But they don't seem to be utilizing.
Yeah, I think. Well, and not to start up the eternal debate of what is DC doing wrong and what is Marvel doing right, but here's what DC is doing wrong and what Marvel is doing right, and that's that Marvel will hire a variety of directors with a variety of viewpoints and a variety of styles. But put them into the right project and let them do their thing, but still kind of shape it within the full universe. One of the reasons I'm looking forward to Doctor Strange is that Scott Derrickson's doing it, and Scott Derrickson is a big horror movie director. So he's really good at doing kind of a darker tone and a grittier tone to that I think is going to work well when you're dealing with a character that is more mystical or more astral plane or more supernatural. I'm sure that Marvel has stepped in and honed it so that if you were to watch it side by side with, say, Ant-Man or Captain America, it all fits. doesn't look crazy or off the wall from everything else.
Sure.
I think that's one of the things that fell apart with Edgar Wright when he was doing Ant-Man, is that Edgar Wright has a very strong stylistic choice.
Yeah.
And I think his Ant-Man would have been phenomenal.
Yeah.
I do wonder how well, if you were to watch Edgar Wright's Ant-Man, again with the Avengers, tonally, they have to fit in the same universe. You're making expensive television when you're talking about the MCU.
Sure. I sort of agree. I mean, I would say as long as what Paul Rudd does meshes well with what Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr., etc. do, then that doesn't really matter too much.
Right.
But and also, I mean, I just have such a huge desire to see as much Edgar Wright work as possible.
Oh, believe me.
Everything I see of his just sends me into a
nothing. I would have loved nothing more than to see that and to him to kind of shake it up a little bit, shake up the MCU a little bit. But I think that's where the clash was.
Sure.
Was he wants to do his Edgar Wright thing, which is
probably
great. But Marvel says, "Listen, this has got to fit in a bigger picture."
Yeah, you're probably.
And I think the problem that DC has. I mean, they haven't done a whole lot of it. David Ayer Smith is the first director outside of Zack Snyder that we've seen do this.
Correct.
But
do you think it's possible that they saw the horrible reception that giving Zack Snyder a ton of power brought with it, and then they said, look, we're not going to make that same mistake again, so when they brought on another director for Suicide Squad, they said, look, you're going to do what we want you to do?
No, I think that, in some ways, I think it's the opposite. I think they see Zack Snyder as a director, but he's also kind of in charge, or at least for a hot moment, he was in charge of this whole DC EU. Jeff Johns is now formally in charge.
Wow.
I believe.
That's a good call.
If I remember that. I know he has a position of power, which is a great call.
Yeah.
Because, and I think all of the good things that you saw about Suicide Squad is Jeff Johns' input of going, this is how these characters function the best. You want to steer towards this. But I think the problem was when you put a director in charge of a multitude of projects to set a tone.
Sure.
They work with their tone and they work really well. And they understand how other directors work, but they can't. I would think it might be harder for a director to craft a larger picture with other directors.
Well, and
unless he was doing all of the movies. Whereas Marvel has Kevin Feige, who is a producer. And a producer can come in and say, this person does this well, so he'll do this and this and this and this. But all of you guys need, he's the overall, he's the hub of all of the wheel that all the spokes come into.
And now Zack Snyder, he's on 3 movies, right? Because he's still doing Justice League.
Yeah, so this will be his third DCEU movie. We'll get we've had 2 Zack Snyders, we've now had 1 David Ayer, and we'll get another Zack Snyder. No, I'm sorry. We'll get Patti Smith. We'll get Wonder Woman, and then we'll get...
Oh, yeah. That looks good.
And yeah, that does look really good.
Here's hoping.
But that's the same thing we said about Suicide Squad, so who knows?
Yeah, I said it looked fine. I was pretty sure I wasn't going to like it very much. And we have that on tape.
That is true.
We recorded a fake pilot.
Yes.
That no one will ever hear.
Well, and in that pilot, Christopher Pike was one of the recorders, and the other host of the podcast was a female. And then they replaced them. Was that
supposed to be a joke?
Yes. Oh, Jesus.
It landed really well.
Yeah, I can tell.
So, here's some of my news.
Go for it. Hit me.
Yeah?
I guess so.
Alright. So, here's the hit. Zombieland 2 officially underway.
What?
Yeah, I don't know if have you ever seen Zombieland?
Yes.
So they've been trying for a while to get Zombieland 2 because it was sort of an unexpected success. No one really knows why. It was sort of a B movie that the production company was like, yeah, sure, whatever. We'll put a little bit of money into this and see what happens. And it made like a fortune, basically. So they've been trying to redo it. And the director, or the writers, have been very busy as of late. I forget their names. They're the same guys who wrote Deadpool.
Oh.
So they've been very busy and they haven't really had any time to do it. But now that Deadpool's done, and they've probably been writing Deadpool for the past 9 years because that's how long it's been in limbo.
Yeah.
So while that was happening, the production company, I forget who it is, like Universal, Paramount, whoever, was like, all right, well, we still want to do it, so we got to get a new writer, we got to get a new director, we got to get a new team, whatever, on and on.
Right.
And they no one stuck. They couldn't get anyone to stay on it or to figure it out or to write a good enough script. And eventually these guys came back, and so they're writing a sequel.
Right.
They also, what they announced specifically is that they're I believe today they met with Woody Harrelson to talk about the movie and how they want to do it and what their goal is and what the arc will be. And in this same interview where I saw them admit this, not that it is admitting anything, but when they announced this, they also mentioned the infamous Bill Murray scene.
Yeah, I was just going to say I can't wait for their follow-up Dan Aykroyd cameo.
Did you know that he was maybe their 20th choice?
Why would you ever make Bill Murray your 20th choice for anything?
They went through, they said 15 or 16 people, and they and this is why we had a discussion a little earlier about Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yes.
One of the people they went to was Jean-Claude Van Damme for that role. And they had, obviously, they sent out the scripts to maybe 15 or 16 people, all big-name celebrities, and they each had their own scene that these writers had written for them. That was absolutely, like, detailed for them.
So somewhere out there is a script for Zombieland
with Jean-Claude Van Damme playing himself. And now, they have heard through a third party that it is his greatest regret turning it down.
Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Yes.
That's his greatest regret?
Evidently. Which
over Time Cop?
Evidently. Or Bloodsport?
Or
anything else he's ever been in?
Or being Jean-Claude Van Damme?
So they sent it to a bunch of people. He was one of them. He turned it down. And then they went to their agents and they were like, well, what other names do we have left that we could send this to? And the agent was like, well, I've got 2 names for you. Dustin Hoffman and Bill Murray. And they said yes and yes. And they sent them to both. Dustin Hoffman wanted to but couldn't. Bill Murray requested they send it to a P.O. box belonging to a local FedEx in his neighborhood because he's infamously difficult to get a hold of.
Yes, infamously.
Bill
Murray has a 1-800 number.
No agent.
No agent. He's never had an agent. He has a 1-800 number
that he doesn't answer.
That he doesn't answer.
It's got a
You
voice
will go to an answering machine. In my mind, when I picture this, I like to think it's still an old-fashioned answering machine.
Oh, it could be.
That he admittedly rarely checks, and whatever kind of gets by when he checks it, he might consider doing. He has said people have had whole careers based on the things that he's missed.
Oh, yeah.
On the amount of projects. Go on. Anyway, so they sent it to a P.O. box.
Right, so they sent it to Bill Murray. He reads it, and he gets back to them, and he says, look, I like it, but there isn't really enough in it for me. Because the idea was that he had already been turned into a zombie. So the idea was going to be that they were going to go into this house, and then Bill Murray zombie was going to walk out and they were just going to kill him or whatever.
It was going to just be 5 seconds.
Right.
Okay.
And he said, there isn't a lot for me in this. So they just very quickly hammered out what ended up being...
They were like, oh, I'm sorry, that's an old draft. We gotta...
They didn't even... No, they were like,
look,
look, we really want you, so here's what we've added.
No, I would say they would fake it. They would just say...
But that's what...
Murray doesn't like it. Write something else.
And speaking of stuff being different than it could have been, do you hear about what...
I thought you were just going to sum up all of my life.
Your parents could have been happy. Did you hear about what Captain America almost was?
Yes. It was... I did hear...
It was Mad Bomb.
Mad Bomb.
They were considering... It was... Granted, it was an early draft. It was one of the first ideas they just sort of threw off the top of their heads.
Yeah.
And the idea was to have Captain America running through America fighting zombies.
Just fighting people. Just fighting average Joes.
Just zombies. Yeah. Like, people who were mind controlled, which would have been horrendous because it would have been the third time in like 2 years that we've seen a mass amount of mind control in an Avengers movie or in a Marvel movie.
That's true. So although we've never seen... What I do like is we've never seen the Avengers during the mind control just... kick the ass of some random housewife and trucker. Like, just...
babies.
Just toddlers. He just walks into an elementary school and he's just attacked by a bunch of
I like the idea that someone in the midst of this would run up to him for help and he would still just
punch him and they're like, what the hell, man? Yeah. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that was a fascinating story.
Did you hear also...
Okay. Oh, you're just on a roll.
I've got so many.
Look at you!
I'm going to try and blaze through these. Did you hear about the guy who broke the record for the most functional gadgets on a cosplay costume?
What?
So, a guy cosplayed as Batman,
No.
And he has broken the Guinness Book of World Records record for the most functional gadgets, meaning his gadgets that he has on his person do what they're supposed to do.
Okay, 2 questions. 1, what was the previous record?
I don't know.
2, what is now the current record?
I don't know.
Great.
It's 23. 23 is the current record.
Really?
Yeah. And he just took like he said he found inspiration from the Arkham games, because I imagine in those games, I've never played them, but
they do have a lot of gadgets.
Yeah,
yes.
I was going to say, I imagine there's a lot of stuff for you to cycle through.
Yeah.
So he's got, like a grappling hook and like some weird lighter thing. I don't know, not all of it looked super impressive, but some of it was really interesting.
He's just like, I got a Zippo, and what's this? Is
Pop Rocks.
Happy-eating Twinkie. That's a gadget, right?
I got this bat hammer. It's like a regular hammer, but this one kills people.
They're like, they all kill people, dude. Come on. That's fascinating.
I know, so that's pretty cool, right?
I like that he said he drew inspiration from the Arkham games and not, I don't know, the actual comics of Batman, who also has a lot of gadgets in his utility belt.
Sure, but the hard part with that is you can't just buy a random comic, open it up to a random page, and then see all of the gadgets that Batman has. You'd have to, like, do some research and read through it. Whereas with Arkham, you can literally just, like, I imagine, open up a list of options or the controls or whatever.
Andrew, if you're cosplaying as Batman with a working utility belt, you don't just buy one random comic and flip through it. You have all of them already. Let's be honest with ourselves.
Touche.
Yeah. What else you got? You got anything else?
Yeah, I got a bunch of stuff.
All right, sure.
Did you hear about North Korea's Netflix? So they've got their own Netflix.
Just random Google word searches and just see what comes up and see how this fits in here.
Literally all of this is made
Netflix, North Korea, Google search. Just type in words.
I went into the bathroom without my phone today, and I just had to start writing stuff down.
Okay, so great.
It's all made up.
All right, awesome.
But no, and this is this is not going to help my case. It's called Man Bang. It's probably pronounced Man Bang.
Nope. Not anymore.
The Man Bang.
Yeah.
And it's a streaming service that you can purchase if you are a North Korea resident.
So far, this is still everything that I think it sounds like. Go on.
It has the same template, I forget what you call that, but sort of the same aesthetic as Netflix. It's
still the same thing that I think it is. Go on.
If you look at the software and the operating system, it looks just like Netflix.
Sure.
It will feature...
original content?
Probably.
Still the same thing that I think it is. Keep going.
It will feature television and full-length feature films.
I bet it's full-length.
That are approved by the leader... Kim Jong-un for the people to watch.
Sure, it's going to be 4 actual movies and 48 home movies of Kim Jong-un. That's it. That's going to be it.
That's probably true.
And then 1 copy of the Avengers where all of the Avengers heads have been superimposed with Kim Jong-un's face. Like just scotch taped on top of Chris Evans' body.
That's pretty good. And 1 Kim Jong-il.
Yeah,
they got a picture of him. Yeah,
that's
sure.
Yeah. Kim Jong-un, because as you know, that's the thing. Kim Jong-un is always angry. Is that when he morphs into the Hulk, it just becomes Kim Jong-il.
Oh, because he's the Kim Jong-illest.
Oh, God, I just threw up in my mouth.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I also... All right, there's a few things that we can just sort of skim through.
Okay, go.
Adult Swim is remaking Toejam and Earl. You know Toejam and Earl? It's an old video game from like the 90s.
Yes, okay. I've heard of it, but I don't remember it
I'm not sure if it's a TV show or a video game. I assume it's a TV show, but they're going to try and bring it back.
All right.
Have you seen John Krasinski's video talking about his Captain America audition?
I've not, but I've heard other people talk about it, and it's fascinating. And it's kind of another fascinating alternate history where John Krasinski is Captain America.
So, yes, it was pretty common knowledge for a while now that John Krasinski was their first choice, oddly, until Chris Evans.
I mean, he is pretty white bread American looking.
He is. So I would sadly he was Jim, whatever his last name was, and at the time, and it was maybe a year after that, and he just wasn't ready yet.
Yeah.
And also, even now, even after 13 Hours, he's no Chris Evans. You know, we've got our Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
That being said, he recently went on Conan O'Brien's show, whatever show Conan's hosting now.
It's called Conan.
Is it?
Yep.
It's so hard to remember, though.
I know.
But he went on there and talked a little bit about his audition, and he said that he he was like, all right, yeah, I'd love to try this. This sounds great. It's like, it's a great opportunity. And he's like, they got me in the suit, and I'm like putting it on, and everything fits really tightly, and I look pretty good. And he's like, I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm like, yeah, this is great. I look great. I can do this. Yeah. Right. And he said, then Chris Hemsworth walked through the door and said, hey, mate. And he was like, this is stupid. I'm not doing this.
Yeah. I mean, I can kind of see the appeal for John Krasinski from the neck up of him as Captain America, and personality-wise, he's very friendly and open. Like I said, he's a very American white bread type of character.
Yeah.
From the neck down, like even if you buffed him up, that we've seen people do, people like Michael B. Jordan for Creed and things like that.
Even Chris Evans,
and Chris Evans, but that's what I was going to say.
He was already pretty big.
Chris Evans, even from Fantastic Four. Was still, he wasn't as jacked as he is as Steve Rogers, but he was pretty fit.
Well, like not another teen movie, I think he was in, and he's pretty jacked in that, but he's very cut in that. And then he just put more muscle on. I think at some point he decided, I'm going to be a superhero.
Yeah,
and he didn't mean he was going to play one.
Yeah, no, he's going to be. I saw an article about that once, and I have to think that it's true that Marvel. I think Phase 8 of the Marvel movies is they stop making movies and they just reveal that they're all real superheroes. Robert Downey Jr. just now is Iron Man, and Chris Evans actually is Captain America, and we're just going to unleash them on the public. And I think that'll be fine.
Pretty good. My last quick one.
Okay.
Did you see the video they released at Comic-Con?
Again, I have not. The one where it was, what was he doing during Civil War? I've not seen it. I've heard about it.
Everyone should look it up right now.
Okay.
If you're listening to this, stop listening to it. You can pick it up later and just find that video because it's
let's emphasize and be clear. Stop this. Watch the video. But then continue listening to this.
You can. I mean, I think we already get the hit. Like, we get it says you've watched it, I think. If you
that's fine. Then that's fine.
Whatever.
So, last week we talked about, I think we talked about this, Riri Williams, the new Iron Man.
We talked about it in the pilot that never went out.
Okay,
I don't think we discussed Riri Williams.
So, Marvel, for those of you who don't already know, Marvel is bringing in a new Iron Man that is not Tony Stark. It is Riri Williams, who is a 15-year-old black girl from MIT. As part of this new campaign, they're replacing, I think, all of their old characters. They're keeping all of the heroes, but they're replacing the alter egos for all of them. So there's a new Thor, there's a new Hulk, and now there's a new Iron Man. So that was revealed not too long ago. They also officially announced this week that her codename, she's not going to go by Iron Man. She's going to go by Iron Heart.
Which I think is pretty cool.
Which is really cool. Until you realize that Iron Heart is already used for something. Iron Heart is also the name of a 2014 Japanese Iron Man porn parody.
Yay!
Yeah!
Yay!
Yes, this is a real thing.
Yay!
Ironheart is the name of a Japanese porn parody that was made in 2004.
Look, before we continue, can I just say, this is what was cycling through my head after you took a minute to say what Ironheart was.
Yeah.
All that was cycling through my head was, please don't be a ship that slaves came on.
Okay, which is worse?
The ship that slaves came on.
Yeah, you're right.
If her name was the Amistad, I'd have been really upset.
Yeah, no, I can see that. So, really, just your thoughts on... Okay, question. Do they... where do you go from here?
I'd say keep it, man. Look, first of all, I'm a great fan of Iron Man.
I really thought you were going to say I'm a great fan of Japanese porn.
I could be, but for the purposes of pleading the fifth,
you're a great fan of Iron Man.
I absolutely am. But I think... Look, what I was going to say is I'm on the internet a lot. I go on 4chan occasionally. I've never heard of this thing. So it seems like it is one.
Well, you are missing out.
I clearly am. But my point is that probably the people who are going to see these movies, this is probably the most exposure, no pun intended, that this movie has gotten. For, you know what I think there are probably more people who know about this because it's spreading through the news now than knew about it beforehand.
Do you think somebody at Marvel knew about this and probably brought it up and they were like,
Now that you say it, I think someone probably had a list of 10 things, and they were like, man, these are all really good ideas.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a promotion today.
Yeah.
And they went through all of them, and the person was like, all right, my number 1 is Iron Fist. And they're like, it's taken. And they're like, oh, crap. And they're like, number 2, Iron Man. And they're like, nope, still taken. That's who we're trying to replace. And they go through the list, and they go all the way down to 10, and they say their last one, Ironmonger. And they're like, no, that's Obadiah Stane. We've already got that one. And they're like, crap. And then they're like, what, you don't have anything else? And they look down at their list, and they're like, and they have a flashback. And they wake up, and they look directly into the eyes of the person asking. And they say, Ironheart on. Iron Heart.
That was a long setup for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't know where it was going until just then.
That was impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah. I find it ironic and kind of interesting that it's not just the name of some random Japanese porn, that it is indeed an Iron Man porn parody. I mean, that's the...
No!
Yeah, you can see that's the poster for it right there.
Oh, it certainly is.
It's very much, clearly Iron Man.
That's some good Photoshop work, putting her face on that metal cartoon.
Yeah. It's really
Look, here's what I think you do. This is how you fix this problem.
Okay. Is it a problem, though?
You just give Japanese porn the rights to Riri Williams.
Oh,
no.
yeah.
So
problem solved.
Here's how you fix this problem. You just mention it in the comics. Like, at some point, she's like, I'm Ironheart, and maybe 3 issues down the road, someone's like, oh my god, you're Ironheart. By the way, that's and she goes, I know, 10 people have told me already. Thank you for your concern, or whatever, and, like, flies off.
I think it'd be great if she's, there's just a small snippet where she does her first heroic thing as Ironheart, and she's like, she Googles herself, and she's and she's like, what is this? And then just flashes to the next scene.
See, I was going to say, it might be interesting to have someone confused. Like, who are you? I'm Ironheart. The porn? What? No, I'm the superhero. Oh, Iron Man?
She just says Ironheart, and just college kids start snickering. And
yeah. Well, I even think just a confusion, like lost in translation of you mean Iron Man? And she's like, no, Ironheart. And they're like, no, that's a porn. Who are you?
I like that.
Thank you.
That. There's something else I wanted to... Speaking of looking at... I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, I'm going on to Luke Cage. Luke Cage is coming up.
Speaking of black Marvel characters.
There you go. That's what it was. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. So they released another clip of Luke Cage. Luke Cage gets dropped September 30th, so we're almost exactly 1 month away. They dropped this clip of him fighting a bunch of gangsters, and they're all shooting him, and he they all go to jump on him, and he's fighting him, and then he has a good line. It's something like, I'm really sick of replacing all my clothes.
Well, yeah, it's that they shoot him a bunch.
Yeah, they shoot him, and
this is an older one.
It is an older. Well, listen, it was new to me.
Well, I was gonna say, they've got a new trailer since that one. That's longer.
But my question was, I watched that clip this week, and my question was, I'm really looking forward to Luke Cage. I think it's going to be great. How many episodes do we get in when the whole, I'm so tired of people trying to beat me up because I'm invincible bit gets old?
Yeah, that's a concern I have. But that's a concern I've always had about Superman, too. And the movies haven't really been able to counter that. But
his tone of voice, like all of the tone that I've seen this actor portray, even in Jessica Jones...
Really?
In those, it was, and the first time, like in that great bar scene in Jessica Jones, it was really funny. His kind of annoyance at people trying to beat him up and break bottles over his head, and he can just easily just walk around and punch people, and there's no match for him.
Right.
And that was cool. And then I saw this clip, and at first I was like, oh, this looks really great. And then I realized that's the exact same tone that they had in every scene with him in Jessica Jones. And I was like, we're going to get 13 episodes of this. How many episodes in are we going to go, all right, what? Like, just let's move on from this bit.
All right. Couple things.
Okay.
One, I think we have to have a lot of trust in Marvel, especially the TV series.
Yeah.
So I trust that they have a way that they're going to keep that from happening, because I'm sure they know those problems. Because they've also been, the movies... We have sort of invincible people. Thor, for all intents and purposes, is basically invincible. The Hulk, for all intents and purposes, is basically invincible.
Right.
And they do a good job of making them interesting. And granted, in Thor 1, they had to take away his powers to do it. But That notwithstanding.
Sure.
They do that pretty well. And I think even in Jessica Jones, near the end of the season, Season if you're American, series if you're British. Go on. There are ways that you can either circumvent his powers,
right,
or get rid of them altogether.
Sure.
I predict at some point either he will have a moment of I don't want these powers anymore, and someone will offer him a way out, or someone will find a way to get rid of his powers temporarily or otherwise. Or, circumventing, we saw the Purple Man control his mind.
Right.
That's a great tool to use. That you have this unstoppable thing. What happens when you point him in the wrong direction?
Right.
So what if there's another person who has this power, or another power that can manipulate and use his powers to their advantage?
Yeah, because they haven't, to my knowledge, they have not announced who the actual villain is.
No, I have no clue.
And you're more knowledgeable about Marvel than I am. Yeah. Does he have some sort of a rogues gallery? Does he have a notable foe?
Honestly, I don't know much about Luke Cage.
And that's why you're a racist.
I know. I sure am.
Yeah. So that's really what I'm curious about, because I guess this is partially because they've not announced a villain of any sort.
Right.
I'm wondering, the streets and the gritty heroes that Marvel is doing on Netflix is great and all, but this is the first time that they've had one. No, it's not, because Jessica Jones had a superpower. I'm a moron. What I was going to say is it gets more and more difficult to do these things with people with superpowers.
Daredevil has a superpower too.
Yeah, but does he though?
Yes. Yes.
It's superpower-esque, but...
He has a superpower. The ooze, the toxic waste that went into his eyes, gave him hyper hearing and
made him a Ninja Turtle.
Do you know that?
What?
I didn't know if you were making a joke or if you actually knew this story. The Ninja Turtles were created as a spin-off of Daredevil. Did you know that?
What?
Yeah. They're not made by the same people, same company, so that's why they're not allowed to say anything. But the idea is that a tanker full of toxic waste spun out of control, hits a small child, and then what's left of the waste, it blinds him, and what's left of it goes down into the sewers.
Is that
it's
touched on in issue 1 in any way? Not a direct... And that's how Daredevil was born, and this is what happened to the rest of it. But is there an kind of a nod to that in the comics?
Yeah, in the TMNT, you mean?
Yeah. That a boy was blinded.
Yes, it's in the very beginning. You see it. You see it happen. It's not like this is the story about whatever, but you see this truck go out of control, and there's an old man in the road, and the small kid pushes him out of the way, and the truck flips over, and the toxic waste gets on the kid, and he's blinded by it. And they have said that this is it's an unofficial spin-off of Daredevil.
Really?
Yeah. That if they could, it would be in the same universe.
That's fascinating. Also, how amazing would that be?
Right. Well, and I think Ninja Turtles and Batman either.
I was going to say they just recently finished a run with Batman and TMNT.
Yeah.
Which actually was really good.
I'm sure. Yeah. Honestly, I'd be worried if they teamed up with Daredevil, because it would kind of be like, well, there's another turtle. It's another ninja. It's
kind of, but come on, don't you kind of want to see TMNT fight the Hand?
I'd rather see Daredevil fight the Foot Clan.
Ooh. Daredevil and Shredder going at it.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty.
But he has superpowers, the toxic waste that gets in his eyes.
He's heightened senses,
right? But they're extremely heightened.
Yeah, but he's also blind, so he can take away one.
No, that's not really how it works. Your senses get a little better, but not in the same way.
Yes, I know, and I know that because there are blind people who aren't Daredevil in the real world. Yes. I understand that, but what I'm saying is they're not. All right, yeah, I guess they're.
Yeah, coming from someone who has read Daredevil comics, I know that I remember.
What, do you think you're better than me?
Yes.
You read
Daredevil? Yes, Daredevil. The deer who was blinded and became a ninja.
I'd read that.
Probably would too. But anyway, Daredevil has all of his senses, other than his sight, which is gone, are completely heightened to a maximum level where he can feel vibrations and tell where people are walking.
Yeah, I know how Daredevil works, alright? You don't have to explain it to me like I'm a child. Actually, I'm glad you explained it to me like I'm a child. Anyway,
what were we talking about?
This was...
we were talking about Luke Cage.
So do you think the spit will get old?
No. I think they'll find ways around it. Okay. Because all three of these people so far, and even Iron Fist coming up, they all have superpowers in some way.
So Captain Marvel...
Oh, yeah.
The Brie Larson... Stitch. I don't know.
Brie Larson-led superhero movie.
They just released the shortlist for the directors.
Mm-hmm.
number 1, 3 ladies, which is already a good start.
Yeah.
We have Nikki Caro, Leslie Link. I'm going to say this wrong. Leslie Linka Glatter and Lorraine. I can't read my own handwriting. Scaffaria Smith.
They're all Smith.
They're all Smith. All good choices. Now I looked up these.
I don't know any of those people.
Yeah. So I'm gonna kind of give you some of their credits, and we'll kind of predict which one you think would be the best fit. So Nikki Caro, New Zealand born. Okay, so she comes from the land of the P. Jackson.
Did she do the new one that's coming out about the kid who's running in the woods, the wilderness? I'll know it if I hear the name. Pete's Dragon. No.
Oh, I am out of movies.
I'm gonna find it. Do you not have a list of anything these people have done?
I have. There weren't many for her. North Country, which is a movie with Charlize Theron, and McFarlane USA, which was a track running movie that just came out and went away very quickly, starring Kevin Costner.
Oh.
She seems to be, from all of her stuff, she seems to have done kind of these human interest type of movies. That's mostly her credentials.
Did she do Whale Rider? Yeah, she did Whale Rider.
Yes, she did Whale Rider. Okay, so that's one. The next one, Leslie Linka Glatter, she has done pretty much all television. But these are her TV credentials. These are some pretty good credits. She's worked on Mad Men. She's worked on Ray Donovan. She's worked on The Walking Dead.
Sure.
She's worked on The West Wing. She's worked on The Leftovers. She's worked on ER. She's worked on Gilmore Girls. These are all really... She has a wide range of TV credits kind of spanning all different genres and types and things like that. The last one is Lorraine Scaffaria. She is the writer. She's also one that doesn't have many credits to her name, but she's the writer of Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist.
Oh, okay.
And she is the writer and director of Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. Have you ever seen that movie?
No, I have no idea what that is.
Seeking a Friend for the End of the World is a movie about Steve Carell and not Natalie Portman, the other one, Keira Knightley.
Oh, yeah.
The plot of this movie is actually great, and I saw this once, and I really liked it. It's a really sweet movie. The idea is that word comes down... You found it, didn't you?
I did, but I am wrong.
Okay.
I got it mixed up with another Marvel director. The director who's directing Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, okay.
And now my phone's frozen, but he directed this New Zealand Hunt for the Wilder People.
What's the name of it?
People?
So
looks very good. Everyone's
Seeking a Friend for the End of the World is it's a road movie where Steve Carell, they find out that a comet is going to, or a meteor is going to hit the Earth.
I remember seeing
and kill everyone on it.
Yeah.
That this is officially the end of the world, and it opens up on Steve Carell and sitting in the car, listening to the radio, telling them that it's official, that there is no hope, that the mission has failed to blow up the thing, and his wife immediately gets out and runs away and leaves him.
Oh wow!
And so he goes through a series of events. I think his mail was taken by Keira Knightley, who is his neighbor, and he finds out like these letters from his old love were like at her apartment or something. So he goes on a quest to find her, and Keira Knightley, through a series of events, ends up joining her, and they get to know each other. It's a very sweet movie. The other thing that she has going for her is that she's directed a couple of episodes.
Hang on a sec. Because it just occurred to me that if this music can be heard when we put it on YouTube, we can...
Shut up! What a bunch of a-holes. Oh, Lord. I'm going to keep going with this. You keep... Oh, God. This is taking... For those of you who can't see, which is everyone, this is taking a lot of effort on Andrew's part to just close a window.
These windows don't close. Usually. Alright, let's do it.
Alright. That was... We could have stopped recording that, but fuck
Why?
it. Yeah. She's also directed a bunch of episodes of The New Girl, which I like because it kind of gives a a Russo brothers-esque kind of connection. They didn't direct the New Girl, but they have, they came from Community. So there's a nice...
It's a similar style.
So those are the three candidates. Of those, what are your feelings? Who do you like?
Get the person who's doing Thor Ragnarok, because they did Hunt for the Wilder People.
God, I hate you sometimes.
Let me see. I like... Of the things that you said, I know the New Girl.
Okay. You don't know anything. Okay. So you're going to go with Scafaria?
Yeah. Is that the one who did the New Girl?
That's the one who did the New Girl.
Yeah, and it worked out pretty well for the Russo brothers.
Yeah.
Who would have known also, like, these idiots making dick and fart jokes with Joe McHale were going to make the two best Marvel movies.
That was my feeling as well. Yeah. The other thing is that at first when I read this, I'm a big Aaron Sorkin fan, so I know Leslie Linka Glatter pretty well from her time on The West Wing, and she directed a couple episodes of The Newsroom as well. So I knew she could handle something with a little bit of weight to it.
Yeah.
But I think my first choice would definitely be Scafaria. I think that she would bring a nice... First of all, she can tackle the humor that you kind of come to look for in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, it's really necessary.
But also, I think she could bring a nice sensitivity or an interesting tone to Captain Marvel.
Man, I just want to see her fucking shit up. I just want to see Captain Marvel just wrecking shit.
Oh yeah, I mean, watching Brie Larson just punch things. It's going to be very interesting.
I don't remember what arc it is, but there's a great issue of Captain Marvel. I think it's where she first gets her powers and she's sort of trying stuff out, and she dives into the ocean.
Right.
And she just flies down as far as she can, and there's this enormous shark, and she just punches the shit out of the shark and flies back.
So you just want to see Brie Larson punch a shark?
Yes. I want to see her just fucking shit up. I'm excited for
that. With
that.
Sharks? Or just...
Anything in general.
What else can she punch?
Anything she wants.
Really?
Me,
okay.
you, your face.
You said...
Your chest.
You said me
your
3
head.
times.
Gouge out your eyes. I really want to see the girl from Room just wreck shit. That's what I'm saying.
How would you like to see Brie Larson as Captain Marvel fly into the tiny tool shed that was Room and just crush it?
I would literally start weeping.
That'd be amazing, right?
It'd be great.
Yeah.
I also want to see...
I'd like to see her... I agree. I'd like to see her punch a shark.
Maybe Edgar Wright can do the sequel.
Maybe a good tree.
Because
she could punch a good tree.
She was in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
She was.
It was the first time I ever saw her in anything.
The other Russo connection, she was in Community.
Yes, she was.
I knew. Oh, that was good. Thank God I remembered that.
Did we talk about Dan Harmon being on Doctor Strange?
Well, that was my next thing I was going to talk about. So let's just move on to whatever. I was going to say,
that sounds like a good
Let's
segue.
just make it about you, Andrew. Let's move on to whatever you want to talk about.
Do you think I'm Dan Harmon?
You kind of look like Dan Harmon.
Do kind of.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. So let's get into that. So Dan Harmon, the other thing is I have 2 Doctor Strange things. Dan Harmon apparently writing reshoots for Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Instantly everyone goes, Russo brothers did Captain America, Dan Harmon doing Doctor Strange. That's like, you got your peanut butter and my chocolate. You got your chocolate and my peanut butter, 2 great tastes that taste great together. But, is it?
Yes.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
I read this and initially I was like, that sounds great. And then I was thinking about Doctor Strange and Dan Harmon. And I feel like those are 2 things that couldn't be farther apart from each other. Like, if you were to put Dan Harmon rewrites or writing reshoots on the Avengers or Iron Man, with given RDJ some Harmon-esque humor, I'd be like, yes, all for that. He's going to crush that. Benedict Cumberbatch delivering lines from Rick and Morty. I don't know.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
I am nearly certain that he wrote the Wi-Fi joke at the end of the last trailer.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Here's what I think happened.
Okay.
I think they got a guy who does horror to direct their Marvel movie, which, by the way, Doctor Strange is not very different from Iron Man. His storylines are very, very similar.
No, they're very similar.
No, but hear me out. Okay. So they're very similar in the comics. Their storylines tend to be the same. They react to things generally the same way. They always have a quip. They even have there's a great issue where one of them, like I think, I almost called him RDJ. Tony Stark fist bumps.
Same
keeps
thing.
trying to get Strange to fist bump him and refer to the two of them as facial hair bros or beard bros or something. So depending on what you do with it, there's always that potential, especially it being the first one. You don't have to make it the same feeling as the last one. You don't have to make him do there isn't a prerequisite that you have to follow.
True.
So you can make this however you like, but my gut feeling is that they hired a guy who does horror movies to make this movie, and they watched it and they were like, well, this is a great film. It's totally morose. So we have to put some humor into this.
I see.
Hey, Russos, you did a great job with, those two movies.
Right. Whatever they were called.
Yeah. The two Captain America movies. What should we do? And they were like, well, we've got this guy who's really funny who we worked on Community with. He's been doing Rick and Morty.
I like how you said this guy that we worked with like he's some no-name jackass.
Yeah. He's doing Rick and Morty now. He'll put some funny in there.
Right.
So that's my assumption.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be fine. There were, like I said, when I first read it, I was like, great, and then I thought about it and I was like,
Have you seen anything else Dan Harmon has done other than Community?
No.
He has a great show on, I think it's on the History Channel or something similar.
Yeah, he does have a History Channel show.
Yeah, where he brings people from the past into the present. There's a great one where he brings William Shakespeare, and he has a great discussion with Shakespeare, and he's like, I've written some things. I have a great show called Community. If you'd like to read some of the scripts, and William Shakespeare's like, I'd love to read some of this, modern age writing, and he reads it, and he's like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's good. No, it's good. It's very good, Dan. It's great. And he's like, you didn't like it? And he's like, no, it's you worked very hard and it shows. And then later they're like, well, let's go see a movie, I guess. He's like, yes, let's see one of these movies. And they're like deciding which movie to see.
Right.
And he picks Bad Grandpa, the Johnny Knoxville one. And Dan Harmon's like, no, you don't want to see this. And he's like, I would very much like to see this movie. And they go in and they come back out when the movie's over. And he's like, what a delightful romp! It's really
That's
good.
amazing.
Yeah.
There's a documentary about Dan Harmon. Have you?
No, I didn't know
there's
that.
a documentary about Dan Harmon. I think it was made during the time he was not on Community. This was like right after he was fired from Community.
Oh God, that whole thing.
He went on like
I forgot because he
went on like a comedy tour, basically.
Jeez.
And they documented it, and I've seen the trailer for it, and it looks amazing. But it also looks like a man who is just batshit insane, like just spiraling down and circling the drain. Yeah,
sure.
Like I fully expected Dan Harmon to be dead by the end of the movie,
or at least snap. Yeah, I'm sure.
Still on Doctor Strange, though, something else came out. We have a possible connection to Guardians of the Galaxy. There's a what Kevin Smith refers to as a toiler toiler is a spoiler through the toys that are marketed with the movie.
Sure.
And we saw something like this happen with Captain America: Civil War, where Giant Man toys were being shown, and that's how it was revealed. So last week we talked about the production art of the Guardians of the Galaxy fighting a large tentacled monster, and then a picture of a Lego set for Doctor Strange came out fighting what is being referred to as a portal monster. And I'm just going to show you this picture here, and that's what it looks like.
Well, it looks pretty similar.
Yeah, so that's the Guardians of the Galaxy art, and that's the Lego monster.
Well, I forget who, maybe Feige or somebody. Mm-hmm. It was James Gunn.
James Gunn. I was just going to say, James Gunn also said that the monster they're fighting in this production picture, it's something that they were hired to go and fight for whatever reason. So the idea is that possibly this monster shows up in Doctor Strange, and then through some series in the film gets portal to wherever.
Well, did you read the part that James Gunn referred to the monster, how he referred to it?
I would if I could read, but I just look at pictures and make predictions.
I know, it's hard. But he referred to it as a multi-dimensional being.
Yes, he did.
Oh, you did read that. I've caught you in a web of lies.
I look at certain letters, not the vowels, just the consonants.
What are you, Russian?
Yes. I've been exposed.
Speaking of Russians, how about the movie Guardians?
Yeah, let's talk about that. The movie Guardians. Okay, so you'd think when you saw on YouTube a thing that said Guardians trailer, you'd be getting what excited. You really wanted to be.
Yeah, well,
I got really excited. And then I clicked on it, and I realized it wasn't what I thought, and I got less excited. And then I watched the trailer, and I got really excited.
Well, here's the other thing, too. Do you know what the I forget what the word actually is, but the Russian word that this is named in Russia, do you know what it literally translates to?
No.
The Defenders. So either way,
you're not getting what you think it's getting. Yeah. We watched this, not together, because the restraining order says we can only be within 100 yards of each other. We're just sitting at a very long table right now. But we did watch it. What did you think of this?
When I heard it was from Russia.
Okay.
When I read it was from Russia. I
immediately thought it was going to hack your email.
No, I immediately thought it was... I was expecting low budget, low quality.
Right.
And what we got was extremely high budget 2004 CGI.
Yeah,
which is pretty good.
Yeah, it is really good. And I will say, I was watching this, and I remember thinking, like, I'm fascinated by every character that is in this.
That's what I was going to say. Every character in this is completely original, sort of, more
for the most part. I mean, every superhero...
has been done
in the world anyway, so you're never not going to have a repeat of something. But for the most part, I did. I watched this group of characters, which I have... I think it is a better trailer than we usually get in America, because I have no idea what the plot of this movie is. In a good way. I see a lot of cool action. I see a lot of cool sequences. I see a lot of interesting characters. I don't really know how they all fit together.
Well, there's a character in this,
right,
who is a bear.
Yes.
Right? That is a very large bear with the mind of a man, and he wields a minigun.
This is literally... I wrote 2 notes about this. This is the first note that I wrote, and one of the only ones. Bear with a minigun. How can you go wrong?
Sure.
How can you go wrong?
Right.
You have a half man, half bear, mowing things down with a minigun. Are they people he's mowing down? Are they helicopters? I don't know. I don't care. That better at least be a half-hour sequence in the movie. You can break it up. 15 minutes of minigun here.
Maybe that's
bullshit. 15 more minutes of minigun with a bear. I don't care. And then you turn it around. Bear dodging a minigun. Really, I want to see a bear dodge a minigun. I want to see a bear minigun
bullets
movie.
from a minigun, or just someone hurls a minigun at him.
But I want to see the bear fire the minigun. Then it runs out of ammo, and he gives up on the minigun. Like, he bangs on it a little bit, and he acts confused because he's a bear. And then he gives up on the minigun, and then somewhere throughout the battle, the enemy picks up the minigun and reloads it, and then fires it at the bear, and he has to dodge the bullets. And then when those bullets run out,
all right, I'm going to stop you right here.
Throw the minigun.
Let me stop you here before you embarrass yourself. Now, you know...
I mean, we passed that.
Before you embarrass yourself again. You know...
3 episodes ago, and I say that knowing we've only actually done 2 episodes.
So, you know it's a person who turns into a bear, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a half a bear and a half a man.
Well, it's a human, human, who turns into a bear.
Yeah.
Who can turn into a bear. So...
That's how all bears are made, though, right?
The stork brings them. So, here's the point I was going to make. Do you know who Ursa Major is in the Marvel universe?
No.
Ursa Major is a bear with the brain of a man who works for the USSR Avengers. Or they're commonly known as the Winter Guard. Okay. He's a Russian bear man superhero.
Yeah.
So that was when we were talking about how, you know, all superheroes have been done at some point. Ursa Major is an existing Avengers member.
Right. I mean, listen, I could watch this trailer and look at all of the heroes / villains, all of the metahumans in this, and go, this is this person. Whiplash is clearly in there at some point. There's somebody with a electronic whip of some kind.
Maybe. You know I mean, that's pretty interesting. Well, one of the things I keep seeing, too, is that there are a few people with more than one power, which is interesting. The guy with the swords also has super speed. It looks like he might also be able to control Earth?
I don't know. All I can gather from this is a cool... It's kind of... I think it actually veins more... let me back that up and try that one more time without having a stroke. I think people are going to read the title and go, oh, this is close to Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like a Russian Guardian. And it's not. To me, it actually looks more like a Russian Justice League. Because it looks like a, let's get the team together.
Yeah, I was going to say Avengers.
Yeah.
Do you know how much it cost this movie to be made?
No.
330 million rubles. Do you know how much that is in the American dollar?
$12.76.
Pretty close.
Yeah?
5 mil.
Really?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, right?
Do you think this... because the internet is kind of all about this trailer.
Yeah.
Do you think this movie has crossover potential?
To what?
Do you think that it's possible this movie will play in America?
Sure. Yeah, certainly. It'll play in small houses in indie theaters.
But
I don't think it's going to... Here's the thing. By the time it's ready, this will go away. People will have forgotten it. I think people are really excited about it. I think there's a handful of people like you and me who will be like, oh yeah, that thing, it's supposed to come out now. We want it over here. But I think the majority of people will be like, oh yeah, whatever. When's the new Avengers movie?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of money there for them, which, means they probably won't do it.
Right. What was the last thing you had?
So actually, I thought of another quick thing.
Okay.
The Walking Dead.
Okay.
They originally took it to, I think they said CBS, but that might be because you were talking about CBS.
Yes, they did take it to CBS.
Do you know about this?
All I know is that they once took it to CBS.
So CBS said, this pilot you got here is pretty good.
Right.
And they gave 2 suggestions that they would take it if they took these 2 suggestions.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
1, no zombies.
Okay.
2, a detective duo added in.
Alright. All this does for me is make me really question Star Trek.
Yeah.
How many... CBS, I know you're listening. Just perk up a second, alright? Focus in.
Turn on your man bang.
Just how many NCISs do we need? How many do we need? You got Scott Bakula. Stop trying.
And the article I read...
What else is necessary?
The article I was reading about this said that they were planning on... He said, what were they planning on... It was Geek Tyrant, by the way, which I love. And they said, what were you planning on turning this show into? Law and Order...
Jesus Christ, Andrew.
SZU?
You really had to think that one out.
I'm gonna cut out that long pause.
No, you're not.
Yeah, probably not.
You're gonna cut out the long pause, but you're gonna leave the rest of the joke in there?
I'm gonna put it in between something that makes it sound like you were trying really hard to find something. I'm never gonna tell you when these release. I'm just going to make you look like an idiot and me look genius.
First of all, the first part takes no editing on your part. Secondly,
sure.
The second part
is impossible by the works of
less
man.
Editing on your part.
So the longer you have something else to add.
No,
the longer thing I wanted to discuss.
I mean, even if I did, after I hear what this news, I
actually don't know if you know much about this subject.
Right.
No Man's Sky.
No.
Cool. No Man's Sky is a video game that had a lot of hype.
Okay.
And part of that was on the part of the fans. I've read a lot of articles about this, about how the company didn't promise much, but the fans sort of collectively, in this vast vat of what could we do with this, went sort of crazy, and the expectations got very high. And now that it's been released, a lot of expectations have been lowered.
So it's bad?
A lot of expectations have been lowered. So this video game, this is a intergalactic universal discovery video game. So it takes place obviously very, very far in the future. You have a ship.
Sure.
You are looking... It's an MMORPG, which means you're playing online with everyone else who's playing the game at the same time is also online. You're all in the same world.
Right.
You can see each other. Before the game was released, they said the odds of 2 people encountering each other in the first week are about 10 million to 1.
And in an hour and a half...
It actually was very, very quick.
Okay.
But they couldn't quite figure out how it happened. There are reportedly 14 quintillion planets.
All different?
Yes. And you discover plant life, you discover animal life.
Where do you find this?
The game?
Is this? Yeah.
It's a video game. You buy
No, I know, but is it DLC or is it like?
No, I mean, I think you can download it. I think PS4 has it.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. What system is it on?
Yeah, I think PS4. Okay. It's probably on PC as well.
Right.
But it sounds outrageously interesting. But yeah, I think people built it up in their heads really, really highly. I didn't really pay any attention to it when it was coming out.
Right.
In fact, John Green is actually, there's a channel called Hank Games, I think. Hank Games on YouTube.
All right, let's go with that.
And John Green has been doing a couple of episodes on there where he, for like 30 minutes, plays this game and has an existential crisis while playing it, where he starts on a planet. Because the idea is that you start off on a random planet in this universe.
Yeah.
And many people have determined that the goal of this is to go to the center of the universe. No one knows what's there because no one has gotten there yet because it's going to take so long.
Right. Is that in fact the goal of this?
No one knows.
So they just released this game and they don't tell you what to do.
There's a sandbox game that they've released. A sandbox game, I don't know if you're familiar with that term. It's
exactly
what it sounds like. Yeah. Usually sandbox games have a pretty, like, there are different arcs you can do or stories.
It's like GTA is a sandbox game.
It's probably it's the predecessor to the sandbox game.
Right, but it's that open world idea of like you can kind of roam wherever you are and find your own story.
But Grand Theft Auto has always had one storyline. You can kind of stop and beat people up, and maybe there's a thing you can do over here and a thing you can do over here.
I get what you mean.
But say for example, Skyrim is the first sandbox game that I played, The Elder Scrolls V, where you can literally just do anything. There are arcs over here that you can take. You can become a villain. You can become a good guy.
Sure.
You set your own path step by step.
Right.
So this is what appears to be just a sandbox game.
Yeah.
But we don't know. Maybe there are people to talk to. There are people you can sort of encounter, non-playable characters who are who sell you things or trade you things. You can sell things to them.
Right.
But the main idea, John Green on the channel starts off on this planet, and he's in a suit, and he has to find a way to repair his ship using the items on this planet, and he also has to constantly be eating and repairing his suit and refilling it with oxygen.
The character in the game, not the actual man.
Correct.
Okay.
He's not a bubble boy. I mean, he presumably has to eat. But other than that...
Does he YouTube that?
Maybe.
Alright, cool.
But it's him playing this game and trying to make sure he doesn't die of radiation poisoning.
Ooh.
Because if you don't repair your suit, the sun gets to you. It's got a thermometer on it. It's 77 degrees Celsius.
This sounds like they made a video game out of The Martian.
It could be. It's very similar. But it's
that's fascinating.
It sounds really interesting. Yeah. It might be worth checking out.
When does it... Is it out already?
Yeah.
When did it come out?
Maybe a month or two ago.
Alright.
So... do your own research. Whoever listens to this, I don't want to respond. Oh, but the other thing I was going to say is that Steam, if you're familiar with Steam,
a little bit.
It's a downloading you can play on your computer, and the PS4. There are reports that they have still been offering full refunds for this game because people are disappointed. So, with that in mind, feel free to try it, I guess.
Right.
But know that they've also not been granting refunds to people. They don't usually, either of those. But read into it.
Alright, that's cool. That's something to put on the radar. Oh, before we move on, Deathstroke. We got to talk about Deathstroke because that dropped today. I'm going to say it's a Media Lunch Break exclusive. It's not.
But we'll say
But I'm going to say that it is. And if you don't like it, I don't care. So Ben Affleck, whatever. You know who I'm talking about. Batfleck released on Twitter, I think it was Twitter, he tweeted out a 27-second video. No comment, no caption, no anything. All it was a 27-second video of a man in a clearly Deathstroke costume.
Yeah, clearly.
Clearly Deathstroke. Not only that, an awesome Deathstroke costume.
Yeah. CGI looks a little wonky, but if this is the beginning of, say, the Batman movie or something.
Well, that's the thing, is that some people are saying that it is something from his Batman movie. Mm-hmm. Chances are, though, it's probably from Justice League.
Yeah.
Because they're shooting in London right now.
Yeah, that's true.
To my knowledge, they don't even have a Batman script in the hole yet.
To be fair, I mean, I don't know what your opinion of this is, but my opinion is I think it's probably more likely to be Batman. And the reason I say that is, when I watched it more closely, it doesn't appear to me to be a person in a suit. It looks to me to be a CGI screen test.
Oh, to me it looks like a person in a suit. Yeah, I think
it looks too good. I mean, you know as well that Robert Downey Jr. has not put on an Iron Man suit since Iron Man 1.
No, but if you watch the video, it's clearly shot on a monitor, not the video itself is filming a director's monitor.
Right.
But then it pulls back and they're in an actual studio with like green screen.
Yeah, so I think they're on a computer and they're watching this CGI test. Yeah,
I think it's a guy.
I don't think so. I have a hunch that this is going to be the main villain in the Batman movie.
I'm bringing this up.
All right.
Keep going.
So I think he's meeting with CGI companies, and this is he decided on the one that he wants, and this is his way of showing us who the main villain is going to be. I would be surprised if that clip is even in any of the movies.
Right. You know what I think? This is what I'm going to predict, is that they're kind of pulling a Suicide Squad, where this is something that is going to be in Justice League, briefly, that is setting up something in the Batman movie. The same way that Batman was in... Like, we had Batman in Batman v Superman, and then we had him briefly in... Suicide Squad, and we also had the Flash briefly in Suicide Squad as well.
That's right.
So I think this might be like, you know, maybe at the beginning of the movie or something like that, where it's just catching up with where Batman is at this point.
Do you think it's not going to be the main villain of Justice League?
No.
You think?
Well, they already know. We already know that Steppenwolf is the main villain of Justice League.
Are we sure? We just know that he was in a deleted scene.
No, they've said he is the main villain, because the idea, everyone at first assumed it was going to be Darkseid, and then they came out and said no, it's Steppenwolf.
Right, I
imagine
the
first one, and then the second one that they say is not officially happening, but it's kind of officially happening.
Well, I imagine Darkseid is probably going to be their Thanos.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, he's going to be the guy they work up to.
Oh, it definitely is. Yeah. So I did want to just throw that out there. I think it's an actual guy. I think that it is.
I don't think it is. It looks too smooth for how clunky the armor is. Like, it looks very Iron Man-esque, and his movement is way too smooth.
Well, yeah. I will say this. They did not say anything. I mean, again, there was no caption in the video, but no one has reported, like, oh, it turns out this is the actor underneath that costume.
Right, yeah. No one's... Yeah,
so
people are still trying to figure out the actor.
But, yeah. So... All right, should we move on to... the sad reality that we live in now?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it, or should I talk about it?
Why don't you start us off?
Okay. So we just learned today that the great Gene Wilder passed away at the age of, I think, 83.
That's what I think, too, yeah.
It was funny because you just told me this maybe minutes before we got on the train to come record this, and so I think this was a good idea to talk about this, because we can kind of riff on our feelings on the man. I mean, obviously, if you're any kind of a geek or nerd, Gene Wilder had some sort of place probably in your childhood. This was a guy who, for me, I'll just start off with this. For me, this guy harken back to an old school comedian, in that he was a real actor. This guy was, today we have some really talented comedians in film, but it's all based around this idea of kind of the Apatow style of comedy, where we have plot and we have a scene, and then you start a comedic bit and you freeze and you stop everything to riff on that comedic bit, and then you move on. But the whole plot and the whole flow of the movie kind of stops, and you sit with it for a little while.
Yeah.
This was a guy like in all of his Mel Brooks movies, or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or the Frisco Kid, who could make you laugh and stay in the moment and stay in the character and move the plot forward and move the movie forward. And you lived in a funny idea with his movies. You know, the when you boil down the idea of Young Frankenstein, it's a funny idea.
Yeah,
and that was top of the humor.
That was his baby. Too.
Yeah, he's also. I've heard this great story about him. This is one of my favorite stories. About the ending of Young Frankenstein, that he was definitely the one who came up with the putting on the Ritz ending.
Oh, great.
That it wasn't. They didn't know how to end the movie.
Sure.
And Mel Brooks they were shooting and they're like, he was like, I still don't quite know how to end the movie. And Gene Wilder's pitched this idea of the putting on the Ritz. And Brooks was like, yeah, no, I don't think it's right. Man. And so Wilder kept fighting for it. He's like, I really think this is it. I really think this is it. And then finally Mel Brooks was like, yeah, I think, you know what? All right, let's try it. Let's do it. We'll shoot it. And it made it into the movie. Wilder once asked Mel Brooks, why did you say no at first? And he said, I knew if I said no and you kept fighting for it, then it was a good idea. Oh. That if you were that passionate and you were that headstrong about it, that it was the right thing to do because you were going to fight for it and you were going to do something that you believed in. You didn't just give up and try something else. That's a half-baked idea. But if you have an idea and you really believe that it's right, you're going to fight for it if I say no. And that's when you know you have the right idea. It's one of those things where, we have all these remakes and we have these or relaunches or reboots or whatever you want to call them, and people use that phrase, they're killing my childhood or they're raping my childhood or whatever, and it kind of gets thrown out. This is one of those things that you really feel like a piece of your childhood is not lost. Sure. To not have that guy in the world. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's the great story as well that I think everyone knows at this point, and it's the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory one where they went up to him and they said, here's the script. Right. We'd like you to play Willy Wonka. And he read the script and got back to them and he said, I like the script and I'd really like to do it, but there's one condition. Right. And it's that when I first come out, I have to be walking with a cane. Yep. And then the cane gets stuck in the ground. And then I'll take a couple steps and people will think, oh no, he lost his cane. And then I'll do a somersault and they'll see that it was all a sham. And they were like, I don't know about this. Can you back that up with anything? And he said, well, from then on, no one knows what I'm capable of doing.
You'll never trust him, and you'll never know if he's telling the truth or not.
Right.
Yeah, he just had he had one of those comedic instincts. And it wasn't that he just had a comedic instinct about how to tell a joke, which he did. Yeah. But he had genuinely just funny ideas, just scenarios that were funny, but also organic.
Did he do stand-up?
No, he didn't. He was his first movie, actually... I need to back it up. His first movie that was released was The Producers.
Are you sure?
But the first movie that he shot was Bonnie and Clyde.
Okay. I was going to say, he looks much younger in that.
No, that's why. Bonnie and Clyde, if I'm remembering this correctly, and I could totally be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, is that he shot Bonnie and Clyde. And he
did it?
Yeah.
He's the one who killed him?
He did, and that's really what we need
Plot
to be focusing
twist.
on. No, he shot he's only in one scene. Is it one scene?
No.
He's only in a few scenes.
He's a very minor part, but he's in many scenes.
Is he in many scenes?
Yeah, they pick him up and he comes along with them
for
a long time.
I know that. Okay, I will confess I've never seen this movie. I just know
he's great in it.
He's a smaller part in it.
He plays Gene.
Nice.
Yeah, it's his character.
And it's actually kind of a more dramatic role.
It's not funny at all.
Yeah. And he shot Bonnie and Clyde first.
Stop using that phrasing.
He shot the movie he shot his scenes for Bonnie and Clyde first, and then went on and shot the movie The Producers. I'm trying to choose my words for you. Shot the movie The Producers, and the movie for The Producers came out first, and Bonnie and Clyde came out second, even though he had shot them in the reverse order. Sure. So it's kind of interesting to see that movie see Bonnie and Clyde when it first came out, because the producers had already been a big hit, and this guy launched onto the scene. Yeah. And then he's in this movie, and he's, like I said, he's a small part. He's in many scenes, but he's a small part.
Yeah, he's very minor.
Which then made him one of the because of that order. It actually made him one of the few people to have a film introduction that garnered him an Academy Award nomination.
Sure.
Because he was nominated for the producers.
That's right.
So it's him, it's Peter O'Toole, Jennifer Hudson, the chick from Precious. Like, there's a whole... Edward Norton. There's maybe... I think there's under 10 people.
Yeah, wow.
That first film out of the gate, brilliance. And it's amazing. I mean, you watch that performance in the producers, and it is just... It's just energy, just forward.
Well, his
spouting forward.
His first two movies as well really show you that comedy and drama, there is no difference.
There's a slight difference. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that for him, and that's what made him and a lot of his actors of his generation and the comedians of his generation, is that they both came from the same place. And then when you needed to make it funny, you added something to it, but it still came from a very organic place of, like, this is what the scene is, this is what I'm doing, and we're going to add on to that. Not, this is what the scene is, we could do this funny bit right here, let's stop and we'll do this funny bit and then we'll move on with the rest of the scene. It is one of those things that you hear about it and it just, like, kind of rocks you back.
His nephew released an official statement. It says, we understand for all the emotional and physical challenges this situation presented. We have been among the lucky ones. He died of Alzheimer's, side note. This illness, unlike in so many cases, never stole his ability to recognize those that were closest to him, nor took command of his central, gentle, life-affirming core personality. The decision to wait until this time to disclose his condition wasn't vanity, but more so that the countless young children that would smile or call out to him, "There's Willy Wonka," would not have to be then exposed to an adult referencing illness or trouble and causing delight to travel to worry, disappointment, or confusion. He simply couldn't bear the idea of one less smile in the world. He continued to enjoy art, music, and kissing with his leading lady of the last 25 years, Karen. He danced down a church aisle at a wedding as parent of the groom and ring bearer, held countless afternoon movie western marathons, and delighted in the company of beloved ones.
Yeah, he was one of those guys who was just a stand-up guy.
Yeah.
You know, just solid actor, solid guy. I've never heard a really bad thing said about him.
Yeah, no. I mean, he's usually the one who... I mean, not as bad-mouthing people by any means, but I know his work with Richard Pryor was certainly a challenging one.
Right. But admittedly, that was during a challenging time in Pryor's life.
Yes.
And so he was dealing... But there's a great interview... I forget if it's an interview or a series of interviews between him and Alec Baldwin. Oh. That I don't know if it's made it on YouTube. It was done... maybe 10, 12 years ago or so.
All right.
That's really fascinating to watch, that he just kind of goes through his entire career. That's worth it. We were talking about this, and I found this. You said something that was interesting, and that was that you found, and you didn't mean this, that it was a bad performance, but you said that you thought Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was his weakest performance.
Sure.
Which is interesting, and I'll let you kind of speak to that.
Yeah, sure, I'm here.
Yeah,
I think that there are a lot of things in that. It's great to have a character who's sort of not out of control, but that you don't know what he's going to do next, or that you don't trust him. Mm-hmm. But that means for me that for most of the movie, I'm not going to feel a connection to that person. If I don't understand his motivations or what he's going to do and why he's doing the things he's doing, it's harder for me to connect to a person.
Right.
At least in entertainment. And that being said, he superseded that in that movie. And you certainly have no choice. He breaks the rules in the way that Picasso became a master painter.
Right.
And then immediately said, okay, now what am I going to do that's different from everyone else? So in that movie, he goes against the grain, and it works. It clearly works for him, but I think I find much more attachment to his characters in Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, and even the Frisco Kid, which we were talking about before the cast as well, with Harrison Ford, where Gene Wilder plays a rabbi from Poland who's just trying to make his way, I think, to California, but he lands in New York. They tell him it's going to Cal, or he says, is this going to California? And they say, well, it's going to New York. And he says, is that close? And they say, pretty close. And they're like, oh, he's like, okay. And then he spends the rest of the movie trying to make it from New York to California in the Old West.
Right.
That's pretty great.
Yeah, it's... well, I think what I loved about him was that every performance you saw, he had that ability to go to highs and lows that would just draw you in.
Yeah.
You know, when he went low, when he went quiet, he had that voice that was so sensitive.
Sure.
That there's the great joke in Blazing Saddles that we were talking. I mean, everybody in the next couple of days are going to easily be going, oh, there's a one in Blazing Saddles, or there's that one in Young Frankenstein. So there's that one in Blazing Saddles that we were just talking about, the Are We Dead? Or,
Are We Awake?
Awake. Are We Awake? I don't know.
Are We Black?
But just the way that he could just take it down, all the way down to just this tiny simmer of a performance, but get the most laugh out of that was always which was great, because then when he inevitably exploded in some other scene, he had that great voice that just was manic and would just take it. You know, it took it to any height that he wanted to.
Well, it's interesting too, because his voice is so timid, but he has such a commanding presence.
Yes,
it's really hard not to watch him.
Yes, it's a very charismatic presence.
He is. Well, I don't even know if it's charismatic necessarily, because when you see him as this drunk, washed up guy and at the beginning of Blazing Saddles, he's got that 5 o'clock shadow. He's very clearly covered in some sort of stains. He looks like he smells pretty bad. Right. There isn't a lot of charm there.
Well, what I mean is,
but you see his eyes.
There's a twinkle. Yeah, the twinkle in his eye. Yeah. Which was it was so. I mean, it's in every movie, and you instantly, whether you trust him or not, whether it's Willy Wonka or in Blazing Saddles or in Frisco Kid or Young Frankenstein or Bonnie and Clyde, he always has that twinkle, and you instantly like him.
Yeah.
You instantly like him.
One we haven't talked about yet, and I think I asked you before if you had seen it, and you said no, but See No Evil, Hear No Evil?
I've seen bits of it, but I haven't seen the whole thing.
As I was growing up as a young child, it was my favorite movie of his.
Okay.
And I've since sort of grown out of it. You know, rewatching old movies when you get older, and you're like, oh, this
sometimes
isn't as good
they don't
as I
hold
remember.
up.
Well, I mean, Richard Pryor is clearly on his last legs, drug-wise.
Yes, yeah.
He's not doing so great. But do you know the plot of that movie?
I know that...
You know the gimmick?
Yeah, one of them is blind and one of them is deaf.
Sure,
I don't remember which is which.
Richard Pryor is blind, and Gene Wilder is deaf. And the idea is that someone who has stolen from the mob, they've stolen this very expensive coin. It's some sort of diamond coin or gold coin or something that's worth millions of dollars. Walks over to Richard Pryor's bodega.
Right.
And he knows he's being chased. So he looks around and he takes a candy bar and he drops the coin. He sees that Richard Pryor's blind and he drops the coin in the tip jar.
Right.
And he runs off. And they hunt down this guy, the mobsters. They kill him. They can't find it. They trace his steps back. You know, Richard Pryor has emptied out the tip jar. It's in his pocket. And somehow, Gene Wilder, who's a deaf man, ends up being in the same room as this guy when the mob comes in. And they're like, all right, where's the coin? And the two of them have to sort of run from the mob.
Right, and now they're stuck together.
Right, and together they can sort of, through a strange lag, make one person.
Right.
But they have to communicate to each other. There's a great scene where Gene Wilder is handcuffed in the back seat of a cop car.
Yeah.
And Richard Pryor is not handcuffed, and he's in the driver's seat. and they're like, we have to do it. And he just turns the keys, the ignition, the engine turns over, and they go for it. Right. It's a great scene.
I mean, they were one of those comedy teams, even when they were kind of not as great as they used to be. They're still better than.
They still both had that twinkle.
Yeah, they had that. They knew how to kind of turn it on and work, and they worked so well together.
And with a look to the camera, you would say, all right, let's go. Wherever this is.
Yes. Well, as soon as they got together and started talking, it didn't matter.
I don't even know if they needed that. All it took was a look.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So
his work on, we haven't talked at all, and maybe you haven't seen this, but on Will and Grace as well. I believe he played...
I remember he was on it, but
And he was quite good in it.
Yeah. It's a sad time to be a nerd today. So he'll definitely
2016, man. 2016 is just ripping them away from us.
I know. And it always happens in threes. So
what are we on, 9?
No, this is the start of a new. I think this is the start of a new one. So we got 2 to go.
It's probably you and me.
Yeah.
Do you exercise a lot?
Too much, I think.
I lift burritos. Here's some more uplifting news.
All right.
I don't want to go into too much detail about this,
and
I haven't told you this yet.
I know.
I told you the
all
first
we've talked about so far. Well,
I told you the first part. I started watching The Flash after your recommendation.
Yes. Okay. Great.
I don't know how much detail I want to go into because we're already running pretty late.
Okay.
But it's a funny thing when you're watching a TV show and your cousin comes up in a supporting role.
What?
Which happens to me a lot, actually.
What the hell are you talking about?
Well, who was my cousin? All right, I should preface.
This is in season 1, right?
Yeah, okay. I'm about 11 episodes in.
Okay,
12. He's been in 1 episode so far, but he was one of the villains.
Which villain?
I can't tell you. I mean, I probably can. He's a known guy, but I should preface. Where I've never met this cousin of mine. He's like a third cousin removed. He's not technically related to me because my grandfather... I've never met my biological grandfather, but my current grandfather who married in has been my grandfather since before I was born. But his cousin's son or something, somehow we're related, but not really, but through marriage, is a man named Robert Nepper.
Don't know.
He's sort of an unknown guy. You'd probably know him if you saw him. He's kind of that guy. He got his start in Prison Break.
Okay.
And he was the main bad guy in the Transporter 3. You saw Heroes. Did you see the 4th season?
Yes.
He's a carnival guy who can move the earth.
He's the lead carnival. He's the lead villain. And
I think so, yeah.
Hold on. I do know... Hold on. I gotta look up this guy because I can picture him in my head.
Just type
and
Robert
I want to
Nepper.
Say... This guy. This.
Robert Nepper? Yeah, that's him. Don't you recognize him?
That's your cousin?
Yeah.
I know that guy.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah, he's really good. What happened,
what
right?
What the hell happened to you?
Look, he got the acting chops. I got the full head of hair. So, Fair. You win some, you lose some.
Yeah, true statement. That's right, he was in Hunger Games.
What? Oh, yeah, he died in like 10 seconds. But my girlfriend and I...
Oh, he was the Clock King.
Yes. But my girlfriend and I went to see the Hunger Games, and about, 30 minutes in, I was like, oh, that's my cousin. Oh, he's dead. Robert Nepper was in the Hunger Games with Donald Sutherland.
Oh, Jesus.
Who was in JFK with Kevin Bacon.
You just oh, fucking A. Alright, fine. Did he die in Flash?
No.
They didn't. He's kept
away. Iris shot him in the leg. And then the police took him away.
He's actually also an Arrow as well. He plays the Clock King, which is one of the more famous second tier rogues in the DCU.
Well, one of the things I was going to say too about Flash, and just very quickly, is that you said I didn't need to watch Arrow, but there are a few episodes so far that I've been I have no idea what's going on.
Oh yeah, I guess because it does spin off from Arrow.
This Felicity person comes in and they evidently have a whole history.
Yeah,
she's been in 3 episodes and I'm like, who the fuck are you?
She leaves. Yeah, I can fill you in on stuff. Cool. Since we're talking about the Flash, let's go on to reading assignments. So you brought up the Flash. I gave you Flashpoint, which is what they are. Sorry, I kind of spoiled. Spoiler alert. That's what they're continuing the season 3 of Flash.
It's not really a spoiler since I've read it now.
No, I meant that season 3 of Flash picks up Flashpoint.
Sure, but you said that's where this starts, right? So I don't really know.
No, I'm not saying spoiler for season 3. I'm saying spoiler for season 2.
Right, but it's still...
Yeah,
like, right. if it picks up...
Listen, I'm doing my duty.
All right.
Okay? I'm doing my duty to say spoiler alert. If you want to take it, take it. If you don't, you don't. I feel like everyone's going to just fast forward to the end of every episode of the podcast where we inevitably just start fighting with each other like an old married couple.
Here's the thing. It happens not usually at the end. It actually happens usually in the middle. Like last one, it was in the middle of Suicide Squad. Yeah. We started fighting about Hawkeye.
That's true. Okay, so you read Flashpoint.
Mm-hmm.
What your thoughts?
I really liked it.
Excellent. Moving on.
I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah.
I kept finding myself asking the same questions that I asked in the middle of Superman Red Son.
Okay.
Which was, how does this happen because of Y thing, right? But then I started realizing that in this particular circumstance...
Right.
I think you find out it's not really a spoiler.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is a spoiler down the line,
right.
but that it's the Reverse Flash.
Yeah.
Right? That's like page 4 or something.
Right,
He's
right.
like, the Reverse Flash has done this. So I kept thinking, there's any number of, the Reverse Flash could have changed any number of things.
Right.
So like, how does, my first question was, okay, how does, like Barry Allen and Bruce Wayne were probably of similar age, right?
Sure.
So
hypothetically, yeah.
One of my first questions was, how does Barry's mom staying alive affect? Because the whole point of this is that supposedly Reverse Flash has gone back in time. Barry Allen's mom was killed when he was very young.
Yeah,
and it changed the course of history. It made him the Flash. He had his own timeline,
right.
Now the Reverse Flash has gone back in time and prevented that event from happening. And now we're suffering from the effects of that.
Yes.
So how does that change?
How does that affect everything?
Yeah, like
why is the entire?
How does it affect an event like? So, for example, in this new timeline, Bruce Wayne is, as a young child, shot instead of his parents.
Yeah.
So how do you get from
so quickly Barry Allen's mother surviving to Bruce Wayne being the one that killed and not Thomas?
Yes, and so quickly, because it must have happened around the same time. It's not like the kind of thing that can alter 10 years down the line.
Yeah, that's right. It also, yeah, that's true.
But that being said, while I was reading this, I started thinking maybe this isn't the only thing that the Reverse Flash changed. It's possible that the Reverse Flash, just doing this,
screwed around with a bunch of other
all
stuff.
The Justice League members.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting to kind of reread this now in the hindsight of Rebirth as well, because this was originally said to be the starting point for the New 52.
Yes.
That because this happened, because Flashpoint happened, and then Barry Allen inevitably went back and fixed things. You can't fix everything just so. Like, you can't. It will not be perfect.
Right. But yes, exactly. But there were. Yeah, there at the.
There's still some wrinkles.
So let's do some spoilers.
Okay.
I wanted to try and get as best as I could from that, but there's so many in this because it seems like every issue has some crazy twist.
Yeah, because it's
really
a deep.
Cool.
Yeah, it is a deep cut of DC.
It's hard to put it down. It's really good. But for example, at the very end, they're like, you've made 3 timelines now. There's the far left, the far right, and now you have the middle one that you have established because you've gone back and fixed
things,
which was really neat. I loved Superman in it. It blew me away.
Oh, yeah. When he's in the
He's super malnourished, really skinny, animalistic. Really interesting. He's an alien, so, like, I could buy it either way. But I'm not entirely convinced that he would show up and be like, everybody stop fighting,
Well, I think what they like to do with that is the idea is that their essence carries through to any multiple. You know what I mean? Like, he will always be that person, whether no matter where you go.
And my question is, nature versus nurture and all that. Right. But at the same time, he's been treated like a dog for his entire life, so I don't know how much of that would be true. But I could be convinced that because he's an alien, the genetic coding is different. It's much more about nature than nurture. Right. And he maintains that ability.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
And the last moment with... It's funny because it's all a Flash story, and in some ways I would say this is like one of the best Batman stories
I agree.
Written.
Oh, you mean the letter that he brings back to him?
And because you actually see a crack in the veneer of Batman. You see it with that note at the end. So Thomas Wayne is Batman in this, and Martha Wayne is the Joker, which I thought, no matter how we end up getting there, no matter what questions you have about that butterfly effect, was a great
It's far more interesting, yeah.
It's a great
I don't
detail.
think they mentioned that. I knew that going into this, but I don't think they mentioned that the mother is the Joker in this. He's just looking for the Joker.
Okay. I feel like I think they touch on it, but they don't like hammer it in.
I was looking for
maybe
it.
I'm wrong.
I don't think they mention it at all. He is looking for the Joker in the beginning, and then later mentions the Joker, but there's nothing correlating the Joker to Bruce Wayne or Thomas Wayne.
But I just the idea of like Thomas Wayne being Batman and writing that letter to Bruce, and Bruce now
it's really beautiful.
Having that.
There's a great, I don't know if you remember in great detail, but there's a great empty 3-panel piece at the end on one of the last pages of like Flash has given him the letter and he's like, it's from your dad, and Bruce is very clearly moved by this, and he opens it and starts reading it, and it's 4 panels, but there's like a shot of him starting to read, and he understands it when he opens it, and it's a really nice detail. He knows this is from his dad. He gets it. He opens it up, he starts reading, and in silence he stands up while still reading and then slowly sits back down and continues to read. Yeah. And it's really moving.
It's really sweet.
Yeah.
It's really sweet. Like, it's the one time I read something about Batman that I would have actually bought if at the end he's like, he just takes off the cowl and he's like, I'm done. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that. Because the whole idea...
He's got what he wants.
Yeah, the whole idea is he's trying to avenge his parents' death, and...
He's also probably motivated by the opportunity to hear or see them one more time.
to make them proud and and to live up to their example. And the fact that he gets that, it would almost seem worth it. Obviously, that's not what happens, but that's why I kind of love this story and why I say I think it's almost one of the greatest Batman stories that you have, even though it's a Flash story.
Yeah.
It's a great read. Like I said, season 3 of The Flash is going to kind of pick up and do a version of this. It's also written by Jeff Johns, who is as I said before, in charge of the DCEU.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a good read for someone who's not as familiar with DC to pick up, because it's really compelling.
After I finish, or at least get caught up to Flash, we should have an episode on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would totally be down for that.
Because it has... I won't go into too much detail and we'll save it for another episode. Sure. But when it's good, it's real good.
Yeah.
But when it's not so good...
It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the same with all the Berlanti-verse. Like, when it's on fire, it's on fire. But they still have to adhere to, like, the 22 episode...
Well, and specifically, it's within the episodes that gets me, like... Again, without going into too much detail, it's very clearly a CW show.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So on my end,
what did I give you?
You gave me Iron Man.
Oh, Demon in a Bottle. That's right.
Which is the classic Joe Quesada. No, John. I'm not Joe Quesada. John Romita.
Joe Pesci.
Yes, surprisingly good.
It's autobiographical.
Yeah. The John Romita classic about Iron Man who dealing with alcoholism, and I liked this. I liked it. It was interesting. It's one of those things where, as a fan of comics, I have heard a lot about it, and it's been built up for me. So you go in with an expectation, and then you read it, and very quickly you're like, where the hell's the drunk parts?
Right?
You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of this. When they put it in a trade paperback form, it is... The first, 3 issues have nothing to do with what they've said.
I've been waiting to talk to someone about this for so long.
It's good. Don't get me wrong.
Fine.
Those 3 issues are good, solid
The last issue is the only one. It comes out of nowhere.
Well, they build it up a little bit.
There's a couple times where they're like, I think you've had enough, Tony. And he's like, one more scotch won't hurt me. Yeah. But he doesn't fuck up. Like, nothing goes wrong because of his alcoholism.
Until, like, the last episode.
Well, even the last episode, nothing really goes wrong.
The last issue.
Even the last issue, nothing really goes wrong. Someone's just like, you gotta stop
he flies out a window without opening it, and then tries to save a crash train and cracks it.
That's a good example. I was really hoping he was going to face off against the Mandarin, and he was just going to like spiral out of control or something. But yeah, I mean, it's another like people don't get hurt or whatever. I really wanted to see like repercussions for his actions. Instead he's just sort of like whoopsie and like flies off.
I mean, listen, for its time, it's one of those things where like you read it and you go, I know when this came out, I appreciate it for its time.
Yeah.
It's very obvious when it came out because Tony Stark is sporting some sweet 70s style between that giant perm and that awesome John Holmes porn stash. That is just, and like they literally gave him every 70s detail they could. Like they drew in every frame, he had a gold chain necklace. Yes. And I was like, hot damn, Tony. You are just...
It doesn't hold up well. Just... The art.
No, I mean, the art itself is really good.
Yeah.
But just, holy Christ.
Yeah. It's everything everyone has ever hated about the 70s.
Yeah.
And I was thinking the same thing going in. I was like, well, this is a fine story with Justin Hammer. Yeah. There's a great comedic moment where he says, I want to ask this guard a question.
Right.
And the guard says, huh, me? And he says, yeah, do you know what a clavicle is? And he says, no. And he says, like...
It's the thing I just broke.
Chop! Judo chops him.
And he literally just judo chops him. He doesn't, like... It was so... Yeah.
It's pretty great.
It was...
But the rest of it is mostly pretty dull.
Here's what I love about... And this is true of a lot of comics from that era, from, like, the 70s... 80s, mostly the 70s, but this early 80s era, is that like every time they have like a cameo character who's like the random policeman or something, like they always give them some sort of weird regional dialect, like some sort of like very heavy southern drawl.
There were a few of those.
Yeah.
Did you see the French one? I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was really, they're really like, just generalizing.
Pretty offensive.
Yeah. I also love the part where, I mean, it was a really compelling story that, honest to God, it's one of those storylines, like, if they were to do it today, it could be really good because they would layer it in little by little, issue by issue, that it would be a growing problem and things like that. I love the Justin Hammer storyline. That he's taking over the armor, and he kills the guy. He kills the ambassador or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Which is a great twist.
Turning point.
And Justin Hammer, famously in Iron Man 2, and he even talks about, in the comic, his character is funding all of these superheroes. Or supervillains, I should say. And I'm reading this, and I'm going... God, I wish they had done that for Iron Man 2. Like, Sam Rockwell was great, I think, as that character, but... really underutilized the potential for that.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, Justin Hammer, many people think the Mandarin is Iron Man's main villain. Right. I think Justin Hammer is. He's much more of the tails of the coin to Tony Stark's heads.
Yeah.
You know, the Mandarin has magic rings, and that's cool, I guess, but he's also like... It's really hard for me to read the Mandarin and not go, wow, this is outrageously offensive.
It's a weird... it's not an even matchup. It's not like...
Well, sure, but also the first time that the Mandarin is introduced in the comics, it's in like the 50s or something, but he is he's called the Mandarin, which means he's Chinese, in theory. He practices karate, which is a Japanese art. Karate. And he is helping the Koreans beat America. Which just shows how little we knew about the different cultures within Asia.
Right.
Like, he's just a
like walking... Like, the Koreans and the Chinese are just totally
It's all the
buds.
same. Yeah. Well, and in general, just that, like, he's sort of this general Asian.
Right.
Because he knows all these different things, whatever, it's fine. Which is... It's hard for me to get
Whereas
that.
Justin Hammer, you build a character that, like, literally comes... Not literally, but almost comes out and says... Like, I'm your doppelganger. Like, I'm the flip side of you. I'm also an industrialist. I'm a millionaire. And I fund villains instead of heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a much more interesting character.
So, there were portions of this where... I mean, it was kind of fun to read because you could still feel the Stan Lee slight influence of...
Sure.
This could be someone's first comic. That was always Stan Lee's thing. So, like, the first page or two was always a sum up of what just happened in the last comic. And you're just like, I got it.
I did that.
I can flip through.
To go back to what you were saying about them adding in sort of the alcohol idea, the alcoholism arc.
Right.
There was a theory that the PTSD that Tony Stark experiences in Iron Man 3 was going to lead to an alcohol addiction.
Right.
And that he was going to have to combat both of those things at once. And instead, they both just kind of disappeared. I don't think he's had a drink since Iron Man 1, like 2 or 3.
Yeah, not really.
Avengers, he did. I remember him pouring scotch while he was waiting for his suit to boot up or something.
Yeah. Which I don't think they'll... I mean...
And the PTSD has disappeared as well, for the most part. You could say that it's influencing his actions.
That's the thing, is I think there was an immediate... You do it for one movie where it's like clearly an immediate thing, and then you layer it in as a receding...
Yeah. I actually like it better now, if that's the case, but they really layered on a thick layer where he's like having panic attacks and stuff, and in the third Iron Man. And it's really hard to watch for a number of reasons, but mostly because it's... I can't speak on behalf of people who have panic attacks or PTSD, but I get the feeling that it's a much more subtle, I'm trying to live my life day to day sort of experience.
Yeah.
And I wish they had either stuck with that one and had him try to figure out what's going on there, or done what they're doing now from the beginning. I think Iron Man 3 would have been a much better movie.
Yeah. I think for me, when I watched Iron Man 3 and I saw the PTSD thing, I was like, it's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with superheroes and superheroic events, I see one event and I go, that's the one? Why that over others?
Sure.
I get like your mind is blown because now all of a sudden aliens exist and they invaded and everything like that, and you have to wrestle with now we're in a new world and we have to wrestle with that. But I don't understand why you briefly went through a portal into space.
I agree.
Threw up an atom bomb and then fell back down to Earth.
Look, listen.
I don't know why that gives you PTSD.
He should have died for 3 reasons. 1, he was up in space as the portal was closing. So it's a miracle he lived even from that.
Right.
2, he was carrying a nuclear warhead.
Yep.
So it's amazing that he lived even from that.
Right.
3, that movie was written by Joss Whedon.
And he should have just died for that reason?
Joss Whedon just kills people.
Yeah, he does. He does like to kill a lot of the characters.
It could be as well that I think for the first time in that movie, and I think this is me trying to fix something. Yeah. I don't know that anyone actually thought this, but it could be that he is just now realizing, oh my god, this entire world is on my shoulders. If I wasn't on this planet, I wouldn't have brought together the Hulk, because he does at the end of the Hulk. He's the one who goes and talks to whoever. Like, we would have, this whole city would have been nuked.
Yeah.
And likely these aliens would still be invading.
True. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
But again, I think that's me just trying to fix it.
Yeah, I got that.
So, what you got?
What do I got? So, I was thinking about what I wanted to give you.
And give me back my books.
Yeah, I have, since last week, stolen 2 books of yours. I mean, one you gave me, and then the other one I just rushed and
still stealing.
Up. Yeah, well, whatever. So I decided to go in a completely different direction. Where the hell are you going?
Keep talking.
You come back here while I'm talking to you, damn it!
I'm getting yours.
Oh. I thought you had my... Whatever.
I was going to, but I want to give you both, and I haven't finished the second book.
Alright, fine. So glad this is going to be in the podcast.
What is it, Chris?
Alright. I have a Superman for All Seasons.
What is that?
So this is done by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, who did Batman the Long Halloween.
Oh, yeah. It was a good one.
Yeah, which I gave to you, and you seem to thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It was a good starting off point.
Yeah, this is a different tone, but it does, I think what's nice about Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale is they're very good at finding the essence of a character.
Sure. Well, and I was going to say, too, in the introduction to The Long Halloween, they talk about how someone came to me and said, I want to do a noir type of story. So I didn't get the impression that was necessarily his style.
Yeah. But they this takes a much more... I think you might like this because what we talked about Man of Steel last week, which was like, where's the wonder and that sort of thing. Yeah. This really hits this is almost, I think, like a Frank Capra-esque type of storytelling with Superman and the origin of Superman, and it's a little more whimsical and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Which I really enjoy, and so it's also it kind of takes it tonally in a different direction from Flashpoint.
Man, look at that neck.
I know. Yeah, I mean the way they draw this is so kind of big and broad. Like, he's huge.
I will say probably my favorite thing. You had me read All Star before we started this. And I had said to you that I would have liked it much better if it were a Clark Kent story instead of a Superman story. I felt like Clark Kent was really interesting. But one of the things I really liked is pertaining to Clark Kent is how they did such a good job of repositioning his mask.
Yeah.
Going from Superman to Clark Kent.
Yeah, to just hunching it.
Sort of the same way, and I'm sure this is where not where Superman got the idea, but in The Incredibles.
Yeah.
Mr. Incredible sort of does that as well, and I think they clearly took that from
they have this has a similar artistic style to it, where it's like this guy is just massive, but we're just gonna So that is my pick.
Sweet. So you get through as many as you can of the Matt Fraction Hawkeye series.
This is good because I'm really looking forward to this. We've talked about this many times, not on the podcast. And also, I've gotten the chance to read the first issue of the Matt Fraction Hawkeye.
How far does that go?
It is the story of how he gets the dog.
Oh,
that's it. That's all. That's where it stops. But it's very endearing. You can talk a little bit about.
Sure. Man, Matt Fraction is my favorite writer right now. I've been reading Sex Criminals as well, which is one of his big ones. I don't really dig that one so much.
Right.
But he also did one that I'm probably going to recommend you soon called The Five Nightmares, which is an Iron Man arc, trade paperback. It's one that's coming in the mail. It's the one I talked about last week that I'm waiting on to get a P-less one.
Oh, sure.
One without the P.
Oh, yeah.
So Hawkeye, My Life as a Weapon, or I think they all have different names, Little Hits, LA Women, Rio Bravo. This is a story of a guy. And he's just a guy who can shoot things really well.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a penny. Right. Sometimes he's throwing a knife. Right. Sometimes it's a bow and arrow. In fact, the opening line, which is one of my favorite opening lines, is, okay, this looks bad. You cowboy around with the Avengers some. Guy's got, what? Armor, magic, superpowers, super strength, shrink dust, grow rays, magic, healing factors. I'm an orphan raised by carnies, fighting with a stick and a string from the Paleolithic era. So when I say this looks bad, I promise you it feels worse. And it's really interesting. It's a story of him and his sort of sidekick, Kate Bishop, and it's them on their days off.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff with his building gets purchased for, I think, demolition by a Russian mob, and he has to try to buy it back, and they don't want money, so he's got to figure out what to do with that and how to get that back. In the meantime, he's trying to care for this dog as well. And one of the things that this does really well is it introduces new mediums.
Right.
So there's a whole section where Hawkeye is deaf.
Oh.
And this is told from Hawkeye's perspective. So you hear what he hears.
So there's no words.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't hold your hand. His brother is in that as well,
right? And
they teach you they speak in sign language,
right? And
they don't tell you what they're saying,
right? You have to figure it out,
right? So I'd like downloaded a cheat sheet that I kept on my phone in case I needed to know what they were saying. There's whole conversations that happen. There's a whole part of this story that is told from the perspective of the dog, and you see the speech bubbles that are like squiggle 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 food, squiggle 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 bed, squiggle squiggle walk, squiggle squiggle car.
Right.
It's the words that a dog would pick up.
Yeah.
You know? And there's a whole section as well where he falls asleep and has a dream, and he's dreaming as his dreams appear to be as a Christmas cartoon special. It's this weird, wild ride that is so well written.
Huh.
And maybe I'm building it up too much. I hope it doesn't ruin it for you.
Like I said, I've read the first issue, and you've talked about it a lot to me before and said you really liked it, and the first issue kind of backed up what you said. It is really, really amazing. So this is a read that I'm really looking forward to.
In my opinion, the fourth book sort of peters out, but it's still Fraction. It's still got his essence.
Right.
And I think those are the only four. Those are at least the first four in the Hawkeye series, and those four are written by Matt Fraction. I think I know the fifth one isn't. I think the sixth one isn't.
Right.
I don't know that he ever came back to it. But
right.
It's real
awesome.
Good. Yep.
Cool. That's gonna do it for this week of the mini lunch break. That's 2 down and 2 to go.
How long until my parole is up?
I don't know. But You wear that ankle bracelet really well, I gotta say.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
It's very slimming. I received, also, we can do this on the show. Ooh. I received a package, some sort of trade paperback. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to open it up. Oh, it's the 5 Nightmares. That's the one we were just talking about, so that's good.
This is compelling stuff right here. Listening to...
I want to reread this before I give it back to you.
Wow,
too.
You in 2 seconds just ruined the quality of it.
It was not me.
Yeah, sure.
And when I read this, actually, when I read the 5 Nightmares, I didn't know it was Fraction. I didn't know who Matt Fraction was.
Oh, okay.
So, but I just knew I really liked it. Yeah, so that'll be probably your next one.
Oh, looking forward to it.
Nice.
All right, that's going to do it for this week. Woo! I've been Chris Treble. Woo! He's been Andrew Dunn. Woo! And we'll see you next week, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Wow.
Bye.
You know what I like? I like how we aimed to do a shorter podcast, and
it's even longer.
It's even longer.
Drunk and number 2 must be awake.
Are we awake?
We're not sure. Are we black?
Yes, we are.
Then we're awake. But we're very puzzled. I think I'd better straighten myself out.
Need any help?
Oh, all I can get.
Hey, maybe you should eat something first.
No, thanks. Food makes me sick.
A man drink like that and he don't eat, he is going to die.
When?
What's your name?
Well, my name is Jim, but most people call me Jim.
Okay, Jim. Since you are my guest and I am your host, what are your pleasures? What do you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.